Hello everyone. Today's workshop is going to be geared primarily towards UNIWeb administrators. So the goal will be to provide UNIWeb administrators on campus with enough know-how of the system to be able to train others and also to answer questions. We're going to be looking at a few different instances of UNIWeb here. As you see right now, what I have open is the demo instance of UNIWeb. So this is a UNIWeb account for a fictional institution. I'm also going to have the University of Ottawa and the Queen's Time UNIWeb open as well to show you how this works in a live setting with a real university. So the first thing we're going to look at is the curriculum vitae section. We're now on the landing page. We've just logged into UNIWeb, into a UNIWeb account. You'll notice, by the way, here we have the administration tab, which means that this is the account of an administrator. If I go to the University of Ottawa's account here I'm logged in as a researcher or as a grad student, which will pretty much be the same account. And you'll notice that the administration tab is not up here. But the landing page looks pretty similar with regards to some of the main functionalities. So what we would do is go to the curriculum vitae section over here, which would be similar if we go back in the demo instance. You'll notice that in the curriculum vitae section, this page will contain all of my academic CV data on one page where I could scroll down. If I want to go to different sections, I use the left-hand index over here. And scrolling through, you'll notice that the CV captures everything in a researcher's profile, from education to recognitions, as well as their employment experience, academic and otherwise. It'll also cover research funding history, extra activities such as they would contain teaching activities. You'd be able to enter in teaching activities, advisory activities, as well as other different types of contributions, as you see here. Now, what'll be the first way that we could fill all this up? That researchers can fill up all this information. There are multiple ways. The first way we're going to look at is importing from the Canadian Commons CV website. This is by and large the most common, the most popular way to import information into UNIWeb. And we do that by going over here to the right-hand side of the page and clicking on Import from CCV. And we'll be taken to this page that you see here. From here, the next step would be to go to the Canadian Commons CV website, where I'm now logged in. And under Utilities, click Export CV XML. I pass the CAPTCHA from here, export, and all of the information in UNIWeb from here will be downloaded onto my computer as an XML file. And then click on Import. And what this will do is it'll import all of the academic data from Canadian Commons CV into my UNIWeb account. And when I do that, I may make, there may be multiple imports that I'm doing from the Canadian Commons CV. And every time I make an import, UNIWeb will create a backup of that version in the system. This message would pop up if I made any changes on the Canadian Commons CV. So what this does is it's telling me essentially that I'm about to import information, and some sections or some areas of my CV may be modified due to the new information that I'm bringing in. If I click on See Details, and I go here under Deletions, I would see that some of this information would be deleted as I'm bringing it in, because I made the update on the Canadian Commons CV side, and I'm going to bring it in to replace the information that's currently here. So if I go ahead and click Proceed, I'm going to have the new version of my CV here in my UNIWeb account, but the previous version will be saved as a backup. And every version that I have or have had up until this point is kept as a backup in UNIWeb. So a few more seconds, there we are. The import, once the import is done, we click on Done, and we go back here to the main curriculum vitae page. Now, as I mentioned that we create backups every time there's an import, which is why if I go here to the right-hand side and click on Create Restore Backups, we can see all of the different versions that have been made. And if I want to restore a previous version, it's very easy. You just click on Restore, or I could download that version as a JSON file or as an XML file. So going back here, we see that all of the information from Canadian Commons CV has been imported into UNIWeb. Now, it's important to mention at this point that when we say that we're importing all the information from the Canadian Commons CV into UNIWeb, this can only be done if all of the sections in UNIWeb match those of the Canadian Commons CV, which is the case. And what makes UNIWeb such a useful tool in this regard is that the data schema in UNIWeb actually remains synchronized with that of the Canadian Commons CV, which means that whenever the CCV makes changes or updates, they're replicated automatically in UNIWeb. So researchers don't have to worry about losing data or having data misplaced when they import information, or export it for that matter. Now, for most researchers across the country, the information that is in their Canadian Commons CV contains most of their academic research data, but not all, not nearly enough to put together a comprehensive annual activity report for their institution. So for that reason, using the University of Ottawa here as an example, what we do for each institution is we start off with having the CCV structure, and then add on to that, if we click on contributions here on the left-hand side, we add on to that the sections that are required for an annual activity report. And you see them right here on the left-hand side. The sections marked with the logo of the university here have been added on top of the schema. So what UNIWeb does is when it comes time to pull information to send for an application for funding, UNIWeb will take the information, the academic CV information required for that application. When it comes time for annual activity reports, it'll take the information required for the annual activity report. And I'll show you how that works in just a second. Before we get to that, I just want to go through a few other ways that we can import information into the system. In addition to, of course, importing from the Canadian Commons CV, researchers can also do this by hand by clicking on Add. One can copy, paste in, or enter information in different areas of their CV using pretty easy drop-down menus. It's quite comprehensive here, and then clicking Save. Another way, if we go to Publications, we've set aside a separate tab for Publications here for convenience. If we click on Publications, what you'll see here is back to the right-hand side, and this is an important trick to remember. Anything that has to do with importing or exporting information, you'll find on the right-hand side of the page, whereas anything that has to do with an index or navigating through UNIWeb will be found on the left-hand side of the page. So if we go here to the right-hand side and click on Import Publications, researchers can import via BibTeX file. Now, when you download from Google Scholar, it'll normally download as a BibTeX file. And the way that's done is by clicking BibTeX, followed by Next. Then you'd choose a file. In this case, we choose the BibTeX. And then click Load. And what UNIWeb is going to do is it's going to filter for duplicates, as it showed you right there. It'll show you what is being imported, and it'll ask if the work has been refereed or not. And you have as well these different options here for the type of publication we're importing in. So you can go through and make corrections if necessary. We'll click Save Selected for now. And another way to import publications that's quite useful is by importing from PubMed. When we click Next, here we would copy and paste the PubMed identifiers, which if we go to the PubMed page over here and click under Send To, if we're under an author's a page that has all the author's works, we can under Send To and File, we would download PubMed ID list, create a file. Once that file is created, open it, copy all of the PubMed identifiers, go back to our UNIWeb page, paste them in, click load. This should take a few seconds. And it'll import all of the publications from PubMed into UNIWeb. And there we have it. Save selected. So now we're going to go back to our curriculum vitae page, and we're going to prepare our CV for an application for funding. So let's say we want to apply to CIHR, and we want to apply. We have, by the way, here all of the different funding templates that exist in the Canadian Commons CV website. You could type them in. You could either scroll down the menu or type them in up here. So if we want to click on this, we'll click on a CIHR Biosketch application. UNIWeb will tell us right here on the top right hand side how many incomplete records it has found. And then by clicking next, we simply follow the red. Here we have a section in red. Go to where the correction is being asked. Answer question. Click save. And we will have gone down from 134 to 133. And then click next. We're brought to the next one, and there we have it. We continue until all the incomplete records are corrected. And then once that's done, we would just export to Canadian Commons CV right there on the right hand side by clicking on CCV XML and going back to the Canadian Commons CV website. Back to where we were before under utilities, only this time we want to import a CV. So we would select the file, the XML file, pass the CAPTCHA, click on parse, select all the sections that we wish to import, and that's it. Depending on the traffic of the CCV website, this may take a few seconds to a few minutes to import. Now, when we go back to the UNIWeb account here, there's another functionality that I want to go over that you may be asked about. We're going to go back to the curriculum vitae page, and we're going to talk about applying submit checkmarks. Now, what this functionality is for, if we go back to the Canadian Commons CV here, we see that all the data has been imported. If we go to the funding CV that we were applying to, we'll click CIHR, and then click on the Biosketch that we applied to. Click on load. We'll still have fields that need to be revised that are marked with an X. Now, if we go click on one of these fields to see what exactly it is that we're looking for, we see that there's a message here saying that only entries with funding end date within the past 5 years may be submitted. So in order to meet those parameters, which vary according to the agency and which change over time, we go back to UNIWeb here, and the first thing we want to do is exit Canadian Commons CV, so we'll log out. Go to our UNIWeb here, enter in our CCV username and password in the Apply Submit Checkmarks area. Select the funding template. And narrow down the parameters. So it said within the past 5 years, born in 2017. November of 2012. Click on Apply CV, and then UNIWeb will filter out all of these, all of the publications that fall within these parameters and replicate it over on the Canadian Commons CV end. And this will take a few minutes or seconds as well. Let me click done. And what I want to show you next is how to download academic activity reports. So we'll go back to our generic template here, and each template for the generic template will depend on the faculty and department that researchers belong to. So here, if I'm in a generic template for the University of Ottawa, what I'll be able to do is download a report, an annual activity report for the University of Ottawa using their generic template. On the right-hand side here, what you do is click on Download As, and what this will allow you to do is to download all of the information in UNIWeb into an annual activity report. So here we have, under document type, the different options, and we'll go through them. Right now we'll start with UOCV. UOCV asks for only the past 8 years, so we select the time parameters, file format. This is all according to the standardized CV of the institution. And if we click on download, what happens is now we have all of the information in UNIWeb required for an annual activity report as a Word file. And this is what it would look like, downloaded as a Word file. And the template, of course, is designed by Proximify, and the university would give the company instructions on how they want this to be laid out for downloading. But for the purpose of use, researchers and users just need to know that this is the standard template for the university, and it's ready for an annual activity report. If researchers want to select another type of document, like say a personalized CV, from here they can filter out layout sections. So by applying a check mark, you would have the sections that are included, and by untagging it, naturally you would remove that section. Researchers also have the option to be flexible with parameters if they want to have years back or lifetime. If they only want from, let's say, the past 9 years, they would click on 9 years until the present day. They can select an HTML or a Word document. Also change the citation style. There's APA, MLA in Chicago, if you want to click MLA over here. And filter down the publications according to their status. So if you wish to exclude publications that are in revision, or empty, you can do so, and then download that information as a Word file as well. So going back to the curriculum vitae, there is one more thing I'd like to go over before we move on to public profiles, and that's account delegate access. Researchers can delegate this work to either administrative assistants, graduate students, other researchers, whoever. If they want someone else to work on their profile, and for this I'm going to navigate back to the demo instance of UNIWeb that I spoke of before. Up here on the top right hand side near the name, if you click on that, what you can do is you can invite, right next to account delegates and invite, what you can do is you can invite whoever else in the system to be a delegate to your account. So if I click on this person's name and then click on send, that person will receive an invitation telling them that I'm inviting them to be a delegate to my account. I could also invite myself I could request to be a delegate to someone else's account, clicking on request delegate access and pretty much following the same procedure. And once the person will receive a notification up here near the bell saying that, let's say Phil Smith wants to be a delegate to their account. And if you accept, what you can do is you can access the other person's account as I'm about to do here. Right under the name, I would see people to whose account I have delegate access, and I would see who has delegate access to my account up here. So if I click on this person's name, what I can do is now I'm in their account, and I can update their CVs, their profiles, do any work that they would need to want to delegate out without them having to share their username and password with me. And this is what the notifications would look like when people are requesting delegate access to a person's account. So if I go back up to the name and I go back to mine over here, another thing I can do is I could remove the other person's access to my account, or remove my own access to another person's account whenever I want. That's account delegate access. The next thing I want to talk about in UNIWeb is the public profile. So Up until now, the information that we've been looking at is information that the researchers and administrators or reviewers would have. And so it's pretty much private. Now, the public side of UNIWeb, if researchers want to create a public profile, what they would do is back on the landing page over here, click on Profile, and they would be able to, here they're able to control all the information that they want to share with the global community. I could populate this information automatically. Researchers can do that by on the top right hand side clicking on Fill from CV, and I can choose which information I want to bring over from the curriculum vitae side that we were just looking at. So let's say if I click on Select All and copy selected to Profile, I would see that information copied into my profile. The first section that we're going to look at in the public UNIWeb profile is the research interests area. Here, researchers can tag different research interests or areas of expertise that they may have by first clicking on Edit over here, and by finding what the meta cluster this field would fall under. So let's say if this is something that I think would fall under human and social sciences, I would click on that meta cluster and see all of the subclusters that fall underneath it. If this is something that I think may have to do with governance and society, we'll click that, and let's say it's law. So if I click on laws and expertise, by doing that, it is now listed with all the other research areas, and I can reorder this by simply dragging and dropping the themes like so. Let's see if I want to bring this one further down. I could do that, and then when I click Save, these areas will all pop up over here. They'll show in the profile. Now, when researchers do that, what happens is that they will be connected. If we go up here onto Connections and click on Connections, we see all of the different researchers that they would be connected to in the institution by virtue of these research interests. So here we would have, I'm in the profile that I have myself over here, and we'd see that I'm connected to this professor who's in engineering. I'm in chemical and biological engineering, and we are connected by a common interest in the motor system, neurosciences, mental health, and addiction. So if we go back, what we're going to look at is how to add research interests. You may get this question often as well. If we go back into the edit over here, the first thing we want to do, let's say we want to add a research interest. The first thing we would want to do is find out if this interest or this area already exists. So in the search bar, I would click in. Let's say if I want to look up common law, I would type in common, and I see that it doesn't exist. Once I'm typing in, as you'll see here, there are a number of different fields that may pop up. If I want to type in, for example, comic, I would type in here, and by clicking on the arrow, it would take me exactly to the field that I'm looking at. But since common law does not exist, we're going to enter it in. So the first thing we'd have to do is decide which cluster it would fall under. So if we go back to human and social sciences, where we were before, and if we click here and we click under law, okay, this is where we would want to put it, right next to civil law and administrative law. So up here, where we see the pencil, you would click on that, add the subtheme, and click Save. And there we have it. And let's say I want to add that. I could do so right away by clicking on it, having it there, and let's say putting it at the top, and then clicking Save, and we would have it showing over here. And other researchers can go and tag this interest as well once it's been entered in. Another thing we want to look at further down in the profile is researchers can add as well current teaching. By clicking on current teaching, they could enter in the courses that they're teaching with the name, role, and URL if necessary, and also the office hours, which can often change, obviously. And this is pretty useful for researchers who have office hours that change. The control is in their hands. So if students ever want to know when their office hours are, especially during a following semester or during a different time of the year, they can do so by checking their UNIWeb profile if they keep it up to date. The research places is another functionality that I want to go over, that I want to show you how to enter. Researchers here can enter in different places where they have had where they've either conducted field work or if they have expertise in a certain area. The way that would work is, let's say if I were to add in an address, and this could be a city, it could be a country, it could be a specific address. Let's say I have a specialty in Russian literature. So I would put Russia, for example, as a country. And let's say I developed an expertise in Russian literature several years back. So what I would do is select the year, let's say January, and then click on an end date. Let's say if I did field work in Russia to study Russian literature, we would do so like so. Let's say we did 7 months. There we are. And then let's say we did field work. And there we are. And we could also add different activity types, such as field work. And we could add different research themes. And it would appear on a map. If I click on it, it would show that I appear on a map. But let's say I want to make this a little bit more specific. If I go back to my profile, let's say I want to make this even more specific, and I click Edit. Let's say I want to put Moscow. I would click Moscow, Russia, since that's where I did the field work. And now it would appear on the map like so. So now we're going to go back to the home page here, and we're going to look at some of the functionalities that administrators will have in UNIWeb. If I click on the Administration tab over here, I'm going to have a list of all the different functionalities that I would have as an administrator. The first thing we're going to look at is access control, because we want to create, we want to give out these permissions for administrators at the university and decide what roles they would have and what the names of these roles would be. So if we click on access control, we will see here a list of different roles at the university, the units that they belong to, and the permissions that they have. So before we assign these roles, we have to create them. So if we click on create a role, if we call this role name, we'll call it test admin for now. And we'll say that this person will have permissions over the Department of, let's say, Applied Mathematics. What I'm doing is I'm creating a role for someone who will probably be a reviewer for all of the different annual activity reports being looked at in the Department of Applied Mathematics, and also someone who can create profiles for this department, who can delete accounts, create new ones, and help researchers with their public profiles as well. So let's select all of these different permissions, and of course you don't have to select all of them. You could select a few, and we'll click Submit, and we have the role over here. They of course can be edited or removed at any time. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a member. So we're going to assign this role to someone. This drop-down menu will have different people in the institution, and then we select the role that person is going to have, and there we have it. We've just created an administrator for that department. Going back, what we're going to look at now is the members. So let's look at what members are. If we go in members, here administrator will see the list of all the different researchers in their faculty, department, or institution, depending on where they would have permission. And these members can be filtered down by academic title, like so, and also by academic unit, or a combination of both. From here, administrators can send emails to all of them. If we click on select all, we can send out a generic message, and you can decide to have this sent from either your personal account or from your UNIWeb account. And you could also specify if you want to send to all researchers or only those selected. And you can also generate CVs and reports. If you click on the right hand side, here you'll have all of these same different download options that an individual researcher would have that we looked over earlier on in the workshop. And what would happen is if we download this, all of these files would be downloaded into a zipped file whereby you would have all the different CVs and annual reports ready. Another thing you might want to know is how to reset password. That's pretty simple. Simply click on the account of the person who wants their password reset. Then go over here to password reset, and it's that easy. Here you can also have the functionalities to add new members if you wish to do so one at a time, like so, putting in their name and their information. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is academic metrics. If we go over here to the academic metrics section, here an administrator will be able to look at all the different metrics that we can pull from the data collected in all of the CVs. So here we have a table of contents of all the different metrics we have on the left-hand side. You can do so by clicking on the arrow. And if we click on one of them, we can look at one of the metrics one at a time. And the first thing you'd want to do is select the filters. So let's say I want to make this for the entire university, for all academic titles, and for any given date range. And you would see here in a chart the number of publications for the different researchers, as well as names and links to their profiles. Here on the right hand side, you can change, for example, the chart type. If you want to not have a chart, or if you want to change it to, let's say, a stack chart or lines. And you could download this information as an Excel file by clicking over here. And we'll see what that looks like. When you open the Excel file will have all of the metrics that were computed that you see in your UNIWeb account. Like so. And if you click on the next tab that says table, you'll have access to all of the raw data that was put together as well. Going back to the metrics section, if you go to the download as Excel file under custom metrics, here you'd be able to pull together any collection of metrics that you wish to do that maybe do not exist in the table of contents. So let's say you want to take data from the curriculum vitae instead of the profiles. You would select which academic units you want to look at by checking them on here, selecting the academic titles, the date range, and of course the sections, which activities we want to look at. So if we want to measure, say, a type of teaching activities, and we want to combine that as well with personal information, and community and volunteer activities, we have 3 items selected. And when we download, we're going to have metrics computing those 3 together. And they would look like this. Now we're going to look at academic units in UNIWeb. Academic units are usually departments or faculties that exist in the university, but you can create any academic unit that you want, like going on the right-hand side here and clicking a new academic unit. You would enter in the name of this academic unit, the type that it is, let's say it's a department, faculty, or even office or school, the parent unit, if applicable, and a URL name. Now, one interesting thing is that if we go in an academic unit, we can actually create cross appointees whereby one researcher belongs to several academic units at once. So if we go up, let's say, to arts, and we have these cross appointees that exist in arts, let's say we click on this researcher, we see that this researcher belongs to aerospace engineering. That's their primary faculty. But if we go back, we see that this person also belongs to the Department of Art, to the Faculty of Arts. And by clicking on Add, we can create cross appointees. So let's say if we take this professor from Health Sciences, select them, and bring them in, they would now appear as a cross appointee in Health Sciences. And why this is important is because when you're computing metrics, as I showed you before, someone who belongs to multiple units, like say for example this professor who belongs to Health Sciences, if we're measuring publications in the Faculty of Health Sciences, this professor's publications will show up in the metrics. However, his publications will also show up in metrics if we're computing for the Faculty of Arts. Now, we're going to go over here over to themes. Now, I spoke to you a little bit earlier on about the research themes that researchers can create. Researchers can create individually their own research themes. And now we're going to look at how administrators can curate, edit, or even delete these research themes that have been proposed. So earlier on, I created common law over here, and we see that I'm the creator. So if we click on that theme, common law, before we do that, I just want to show you on the right-hand side over here. You can filter down these different themes by looking at those that have been approved, by those that have been pending, and also look at those that have been translated, not translated, used. And by used, we mean how these researchers. This has been tagged by, let's say, one or several researchers. So we see that acoustic music has been created by this person, and it's been used once, more than once, or the themes that have never been used at all, as well as together with the researchers that created them. And there's also, of course, we could look at sublevels, themes that have, as I showed you before when you created common law, we saw that it belonged to several meta clusters, and here we can filter down themes according to how many clusters are on top or below them. So if we want to look at this theme here that was created, we're going to click on it. We see that it was created by me. We see that it was selected by me, and if someone else were to select it, they would appear here as well. And by clicking on Edit, we can go and let's say we want to change the parent theme to something else. We can do that by selecting any other parent theme, modifying the name if we find a typo, for example, and if we want to have this in multiple languages, we can enter in the translation over here. If we want to delete this theme, we can do so by clicking delete by merging into parent theme. And that's what it would look like. So these are some of the functionalities that administrators have when using UNIWeb. Another thing I wanted to look at today is the equipment profiles. If we go over to the Queen's instance of UNIWeb over here, we can look at the shared equipment that have been posted on campus. So here we have a list of different equipment that belong to different labs, faculties, and departments at the university. And we could filter them down by, let's say, looking at those that are free of charge. So if I'm an external collaborator and I want to borrow a resource from the university, I could look at those that are free of charge or those that I would have to pay for. And I could also search by research disciplines as well. So if I were to go and, let's say, click on this, what we have here is an image of the resource as well with a brief description. Purpose, we see the disciplines that it belongs to, where it belongs to, and the equipment members, so those who own the equipment. And if I want to contact this person, I could do so by entering my email, name, and a quick message saying, hey, I want to borrow this equipment perhaps, when can I do so? When can I pick it up? And we also see rate information up here. So this is very similar to going on, let's say, for example, Kijiji. It's the same procedure. You would enter your name, email address, message, and then they would get back to you. Now, how are these created? If we go back here to the demo instance, we're going to go to the home. And if we click on equipment, we'll see how we can add this equipment. By clicking add equipment, here we would enter in the name. We would select the visibility. So if we want this to be public, like the ones we saw at Queens, we would select public. By clicking on network, it would only be available to those within the network once they log in, those that are part of the institution or faculty. Or members, meaning it would only be visible to the owners of that equipment, a select group of people. We would enter in all the other pertinent information over here. And what this would look like, once we've entered in that information, we could enter in a purpose, the location, and by doing so, similar to the mapping functionality that I showed you earlier on, when we enter in an address and location of this tool, it'll appear on a map. And we'll be able to find other equipment as well, like this one. You could also list availability, when this equipment would be available, and citation information. If we click on that, if we're going to cite this, we have the information right there. Here we could add the different members, pulling them from the list of people in the institution, and decide whether they are administrators or members. There's also a place to enter in keywords. And sectors of application. And that's it. That's a very quick tutorial on most of the UNIWeb functionalities, the ones that we think you'll probably receive the most questions for. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to click on the support link at UNIWeb, or to contact the reference on campus or the expert on campus who would be able to guide you. Thank you very much.